I kept the 5-card hand with no lands, and I won very easily.
His opponent this round, Brandon Smith, playing Elves. This is a matchup that I suspect will be tough for Brandon if Glenn has any of his kind of combo draws, because just reanimate Elishnorn is pretty much game over.
That is the game. They cannot win. I know this because I played Reanimator at Grand Prix Washington, D.C., and I got a stern talking to from my opponents when I reanimated Elishnorn on turn 2. They were a bit upset, for lack of a better term.
Well, it's their own fault.
They choose what they play.
Yeah, it's not a sealed deck.
Yes.
You know, you register your 75 cards. You get to choose.
And oddly enough, I chose what I wanted to reanimate.
Right.
Because I searched through my deck with Entomb, which for who knows what reason is a legal card, and then I reanimated an Elishnorn.
Now, this is the feature of Legacy. Unless you're playing a deck like Rug or Esper Blade, and even then, you're going to have some small element of this, there's just going to be cards in the room you can't beat. And one of those cards for Elves is Elishnorn. Just not really beating it.
Yeah, I mean, this is, as you said, this happens for every deck. Every deck has a card that they just cannot beat.
Is it anyone's fault? I don't know. As you said earlier, we're not here to assign blame.
No,
That's
we are
not.
not.
But it's just a thing that happens.
Because we are amongst friends. And
Right.
friends do not assign blame on each other.
Yeah, we're just trying to draw better conclusions. We're not here to figure out who's wrong.
I'm sure Glenn, over the course of these couple of rounds, also has probably gotten a slight edge on things because people probably have no idea what he's really up to.
Yeah, and I think that Reanimate is a card that, of course, you see it in reanimation strategies, naturally, but I think it's a little underplayed in Legacy and just random value decks. I mean, we've seen, people play it alongside cards like Charlotte's Agent and Baleful Strix from time to time. You can also reanimate out of your opponent's graveyard, which is a really powerful angle in some matchups.
I think that's the big thing that people forget is you look at a reanimation spell and you always think of, okay, I have to get my creature into my graveyard and reanimate it. And that's not actually true. You can just take their creature and get it back. Here's a Deathrite Shaman for Brandon, so he's off to a nice start here against the reanimation strategy of Jones. Even though Jones can operate without having to cast Reanimate. Looks like Brandon Straw's quite good. He's got a Cradle here. He's going to cast a Glimpse on turn number 2. So we could see a pretty big turn here. You see Deathrite Shaman's going to remove a land. That's a Wirewood. So this will trigger and draw a card. That's going to come into play. This Cradle's going to tap for 2. This is a Quirion Ranger, so that will draw a card. That's going to resolve, I believe, and it will.
A pretty explosive opening here for Brandon, but it may be all for naught in the event that Glenn just has Entomb Reanimate.
Yep. Deathrite will come in, draw a card off of that. Pretty good turn. Glenn is going to sacrifice and cast Entomb. Uh-oh. This is bad news, Bears. Gonna go get an Underground Sea. And gonna go get Elishnorn. Yep. It doesn't take much. I can promise you that.
Yeah. And Brandon here, you can see he doesn't necessarily know what Glenn's up to. He just played a fetch land on turn 1, but now the cat is out of the bag, and this may be a fast one.
Yeah. Oh, that. Oh, you have that. Well, you probably have no way to put it into play, right? Probably, right? It's just in the graveyard for me to eat with Deathrite Shaman. Glenn going to sacrifice a fetch land. Maybe. I'm not quite sure it matters. Oh, you have to reanimate. Oh, okay, I don't want to play anymore. So Glenn Jones is going to win game number 1 here over Brandon Smith. Elishnorn up a game over Combo Elves.
What a crackerjack.
Yeah, it sure is fun, isn't it? It sure is fun. We'll take a look at the sideboard here. We will let you begin with Brandon Smith Elves deck. I'm going to imagine no answer to Elishnorn in there.
Well, he not specifically, but he does have answers to the setup. 3 Cabal Therapy, 3 Thoughtseize, a Scavenging Ooze, a World Spine Worm, a Sylvan Library, another Natural Order, a Kasali Pride Mage, 3 Abrupt Decays, and a Progenitus. He can just board into his discard spells and the Scavenging Ooze. That gives him some fight in the reanimation battle.
We got on the other side of things here for Jones. Of course, plan A is get Elishnorn to play, which we just saw. His plan B is they seem like they're all right. He's got 4 Delver Secrets, 4 Force of Will, 2 Trine Nemesis, a Sylvan Library, an Iona, Shield of Emeria, a Dread of Night, an Ancient Grudge, and an additional copy of Umezawa's Jite. So if he wants to play a normalized game, he can bring another copy of Jite, which is great against Elves, of course. If he wants to go back to the reanimation plan, he can bring an Iona, Shield of Emeria as well, so he can have multiple good targets.
Yeah.
The other cards here are kind of whatever. Sylvan Library is just a nice card. Force of Will, not a card I particularly love against Elves. I think it's fine. I think Glenn may want a few copies, but I don't think he's going to need all 4.
It's interesting because Glenn has the option in this matchup of just saying, I'm just going to be a tempo deck. I have 2 copies of Umezawa's Jite alongside 4 Lightning Bolts, so he's got a really good angle of attack there. And then he can just have Elishnorn as a backup plan. he doesn't even have to cut the reanimates in that world because he can use removal spells, maybe reanimate certain cards out of Brandon's graveyard, maybe get his own stuff back in certain spots. I mean, he doesn't have to get rid of reanimate altogether out of his deck. I'm curious to see if he wants to bring in the Delver of Secrets, because Delver plus Jitte is very powerful against elves. They don't have ways to block flyers, and so that might be a path Glenn wants to go down.
And it looks like Glenn would like his deck name to be deemed Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
That's what he would like it to be called. Should we appease Glenn Jones, do you think?
We do owe him a debt. I mean, he was a very valuable member of the coverage team for several years.
But then he left.
And so that makes him a traitor too. I don't really know. I could take it or leave it.
I think we should maybe go with Pyro Young Reanimator Stein.
Right.
Really just make him upset.
Yeah.
Because he's big on deck names,
Right.
and them making sense.
What about Scraggly Beard Reanimator?
Now we're talking.
All right, now we got a deck
Now
name.
we're talking. Perfect. Looks like we will go with Young Frankenstein. I'm not sure I quite agree, but Glenn, this one's for you, kid.
Yeah.
Thanks for all that hard work. You get this one time.
Just once. You cashed it in. Hope it counts.
Now get back to reanimating Elishnorn. That's
Right.
what I say. We already have one champion crowned here. Mono Red, Kevin Rand. Three-peat. Three in a row for Mono Red.
Very impressive. And 3 distinct builds of Mono Red aggro as well.
Yep. So that one's our standard open. We got to work our way towards a legacy open champion now, though. Jones with this young Pyromancer, reanimation, who knows what deck here, starting off 2-0 and up a game over Brandon Smith playing L's. Got a lot of good players in the room this weekend. Legacy scene here in Las Vegas. It does dip into the Los Angeles area, so it's going to be a really fun tournament.
Yeah, Las Vegas is kind of an extension of that scene. I mean, the player bases obviously are different from one another, but when it comes to these larger regional style events, they are the same scene. There's a lot of overlap.
Yeah. And unfortunately for a player like Jonathan Jobe, who has won here, he's out of the tournament, but there's a lot of sweet people here who have had success in Legacy. So I expect a really fun tournament to watch, as we're just over that 9-round cutoff. We have, I believe, 233 players.
And Glenn really indulging in his now, new to the LA scene.
Yeah.
Getting a little fancy with his Legacy brews.
Yeah, I tell you. Every Legacy Open that you do play in, however, Star City Games, as of last weekend, you get one of these bad boys. Actually, two Acorn Mystic tokens. But everything else for our new Creature Collection series is available. You've got the playmat, the deck box, the dice bag, and the sleeves. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether you're playing Shadow the Squirrel or Acorn Harvest, we have your squirrel token needs met with this new series of tokens. Totally awesome. Sweet artwork, chubby cheeks and an acorn. Hard not to get behind that.
You got to think this was influenced by Zach Hill, a big fan of the squirrels.
I think that, adorable animals now in the internet age are just a thing. Maybe this trend fades in a couple of years. Maybe it's here to stay. I don't know. Inspired by a lot of different things.
We talked about hippos a couple weeks ago in Providence.
We did.
But I think we can work our way towards more creatures as well.
Yeah. Eventually, my real interest with the squirrel series is, at what point are the cheeks too chubby? I mean, I feel like we've been kind of scaling up over time. The Acorn Mystic has extremely chubby cheeks. When do we say this is too much? This is gratuitous.
Enough is simply enough.
Yeah.
Maybe we scale back.
The squirrel is starting to tip over a little bit because the cheeks are a little too large. Glenn Jones with a lot of action in this matchup. I mean, he looks like a reanimator deck that game, and I'm sure Brandon will be none too thrilled if he loses this game to, say, Delver of Secrets plus Umezawa Shite plus Lightning Bolts.
Yeah, thinking, what on earth are you doing? And
Yeah.
Glenn saying, that's exactly what I want you to think.
Anti-elves. Thought there was going to be a lot of elves in the room.
Smith will be on the play here after losing to Elishnorn on turn number 2. Glenn did a nice job of keeping up appearances there.
Yeah.
Just leaving his fetch land in play and hoping that Brandon will tap that Deathrite Shaman.
Glenn played that game extremely well.
He sure did, didn't he? He
Got the right target with his Entomb.
Yep.
Cast Reanimate on the right target. Gotta like everything he did that game.
every step of the way. A perfect, I can say it, a perfect game played by Glenn Jones. Looks like Smith is going to keep here. We're going to start off with a Windswept Teeth. Down to 19 we go. Both players happy with their openers. This is a Forest. See what Smith wants to do on turn number 1 here.
And not a lot of graveyard hate, again, in Brandon's list. Nothing really going on in the main deck, and just the one scavenging use post-board. It looks like Brandon has brought in the Progenitus, and It is, unfortunately for him, in the hand.
Nettle Sentinel will come into play. Glenn Jones going to take a draw here. This is a C along with the Delver. So time to flip it up a little bit.
And if you're Brandon, your reaction is, what?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Smith drawing a glimpse of nature for the turn. You mentioned the Progenitus in hand. Actually a pretty good hand right now for Brandon. I think glimpses are probably a pretty good place to start. And so he will start there. Jones gives that the A-OK, gonna sacrifice the Verdant Catacombs. I think one of the elves in his hand right now is a Birchlore Ranger, and that's the important one. Lets him continue to keep going off.
Yeah, it's unlikely that Brandon can win the game from this spot, but he can at least have a really big development turn.
See Brandon searching out basics on purpose. Not sure if Jones does have Wasteland in his deck or not. Taking a look at Glenn's mana base, he actually does not have Wasteland in a deck that typically would have Wasteland.
But who even knows, right? If you're Brandon, better to err on the side of caution.
Hard to argue with that. And, yep, there's the Birchlore Ranger. Gonna cantrip, this will come into play. So he can do a little bit of chaining with 1 mana elves. There's a Heritage Druid, that'll untap, and if he finds a Nettle Sentinel, he can have a whole bunch of fun. Natural Order was the draw there. You see Elvish Visionary over there as well, Green Sun Zenith. But the Zenith will only be for 0. However, he may just want to cast that for 0 and go get a Dryad Arbor. That looks to be the case here. See some Thoughtseizes there from the sideboard that have come in, not much of a surprise there. But not a bad turn. Can work his way towards Natural Order on the next turn.
Again, a little bit of a setup here. Of course, cards, given the start here, some cards like Umezawa's Jitte are going to be far too slow for this sort of game. Really putting the pressure on Glenn to be able to reanimate.
Jones going to take a look here at the top card with the Delver of Secrets trigger on the stack.
And the players are looking for Hunter Boba and Chris Locke. Please come up.
See what he's able to find. And it is a winner in Gitaxian Probe. And this is where you speak about how great Probe is once he sees the hand.
Well,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
A mixture of information and a free spell here. Pretty valuable for someone who wants to know how to cast their spells.
Oh, look, a Cabal Therapy.
That's like a combo.
That is neat. He already knows about Progenitus, Natural Order, and Elvish Visionary. Now he can take one of them.
Oh, it's like the information was valuable this turn.
Huh. You know what that is? That's good deck building.
That's how you build a deck.
That's good deck
That's
building.
how you build a deck right there.
We'll see if Jones wants to actually fire off this Cabal Therapy right now. He also has a Lightning Bolt and a Polluted Delta to search for the necessary land. So got a lot of options here. He's going to start with the Polluted Delta. We'll see what land he wants to search up. I have to imagine it'll be for red mana to turn on this Lightning Bolt, but there's no guarantee of that. Looks like a bad land, so will be the choice. Normally you only see Badlands and Goblins. I'm glad to see that get some more play.
Occasional Storm deck, you'll see a Badlands. Team Italia.
Jund. Badlands doesn't get a lot of love, though.
No, it does not. It gets played in 2 types of decks. Extremely busted decks and extremely fair decks.
Yeah.
And Glenn's deck, to be fair, is kind of, it's like half of both.
Yeah. Trying to figure out how he wants to sequence the turns. One of the things that makes Legacy such a great format is that you have a lot of decisions to make in a very small amount of time, so you can't afford to get any of them wrong.
Yeah, and it's all about setting up, spells over the course of several turns.
Mm-hmm.
The question here is does Glenn want to sacrifice this Insectile Aberration to a Cabal Therapy? Or is he happy just taking Natural Order and letting the Visionary stick around? But I imagine this fight has to be over the Natural Order.
Yeah,
right?
Natural Order's long gone. That's not too much of a surprise to me. Now it's going to be Lightning Bolt time. I'm going to go with Nettle Sentinel as opposed to Heritage Druid and Birchlore Ranger. The thing that makes Elves kind of difficult to play against is when you do have a Lightning Bolt, you can make an argument for all of those targets that are in play.
Since Brandon has 2 mana creatures in play, it doesn't make a lot of sense to go over to that. And Nettle Sentinel is dangerous in the event that Brandon's able to reassemble. If he finds Glimpse and plays the Visionary and starts to get the ball rolling, that's the most dangerous card in hand.
Quirion Ranger was the draw. Smith going to start with an Elvish Visionary, so that's going to be Cantrippin into a Misty Rainforest. You see the Progenitus in the hand. That's the worst place for that to be. Though I have heard stories of elves being able to cast that from the hand. due to Birchlore Ranger.
Oh, nice.
I have heard stories. Korean Ranger going to be played in an attack here for 2. Follow up with a Misty Rainforest, pass the turn back over to Jones. Jones at 13, Smith at 15. Jones draws a card. It's another copy of Delver, which you can set up however you'd like, as there is a Brainstorm in the hand. I have to imagine right now, if you're Jones, you're looking for a new Jite since you're playing this pretty fair game.
Lands or reanimate package. And keep in mind, you know, Glenn's light total definitely matters in all this because of the card reanimate. So it's not even out of the question that Glenn would just sit on defense this turn instead of attack to preserve his life total. So he has the ability, he has enough life to play with to be able to reanimate for Elistorn.
Reanimate was the draw. Don't think he has an Entomb just yet. Looks like he's going to play some sort of cantrip here. There's a Flusterstorm right now in Jones's hand. He also has a Brainstorm and a Ponder.
That Badland's a pretty big cost right now. So many blue spells in his hand. And I like Glenn here trying to find another source of mana this turn.
That's a black card. I'm not sure if it was a Therapy or if it was an Entomb. If it was Entomb, I think his action may have been a little bit quicker. We'll see, though. Yep. Entomb Reanimate.
Not a bad opening here from Glenn.
Yeah, I've seen better Brainstorms.
So there's 2 nice things that I like about this turn. One is Elistorn pumps the inside operation. Now
That's
it's a
key.
3-turn clock.
It's a 5-4 now.
And the second thing I like about it is Brennan's locked out of play in the game.
Oh, sure. So you put those together, and that equals likely a victory.
Yeah, there you go.
Glenn Jones going to get the job done here. 2-0 over Brandon Smith. Young Frankenstein destroying elves.
That's a sweet brew.
I like what I see.
It's a really sweet
brew. I
brew.
see a deck that's 3-0 right now. I think I see a deck that might be in the old sideboard deck tech, perhaps.
I think it's likely. Glenn in the other seat this time. Perhaps a first.
Yeah, this could be something new for him.
Yeah.
He'll be being interviewed, not the interviewee.
Yeah.
Very
New
fun.
territory.
Glenn Jones moves on to 3-0 here with Young Frankenstein. We will have another match for you guys, I presume, in a moment. But, you know, taking a look at Glenn's deck list before we do go to the sideboard at some point with Glenn, you know, the one card I'm actually interested in 2 cards here.